Okay, so how did it go? Any questions? Do you feel like you have a topic that you can cover?
Well, I'm hoping that this next section, I think you're going to be covering like content more. I'm
Outline. Yeah.
struggling with deciding whether in my webinar, if I want like a big picture overview of what the course is going to be, or if I should focus in on one section of it, I guess.
So let me ask you this. Do you feel like it's sort of a step-by-step process or what? Because I will tell you another thing I do. In my boot camp for raising leaders, I have 6 modules. I pretty much over 4 days go through module one, so that they're sort of primed and ready. And then the last day, I do my 4 steps webinar. Now, I know this isn't a boot camp's different, but what I'm saying is if you could do like step one and then say to get all the rest of the steps, you have to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Well, I think I want the topic of the webinar to be how to start, how to get like a smooth start in January after the holidays and all of that.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and we are going to work on titles
so
too. So
yeah.
if you've got, I mean, that's what this is about. If you've got the pain point and the solutions, you can put that into Chat GPT. And I've got several formulas to come up with a title. And it may be once you go through and get some different titles, that might nail down exactly how you want to cover the information. Whether some of these have numbers at the beginning, some of them are problem to solution titles. So maybe, yeah, you've got an idea of what you want to
Hmm.
do, then we can just decide how you want to put it together.
Yeah. I think it'll probably end up being the three-step one that you mentioned. That just makes the most sense to me. Um, and I think I have an idea of what I want to cover. Maybe I don't know. I don't feel like it's nailed down enough to really come up with the benefits without a little bit more thought, I guess. And I
Hey, let
probably
me ask you
should be more.
this, because I can't remember. Is this course already created?
No.
Okay, so you're
I
going to
have
be
an outline
creating.
kind of like a general
Yeah,
outline,
then
but
I would take the general outline and put that into Chat GPT and ask for benefits. You
Mhm.
could even go to Chat GPT and say, I want to give a sales webinar for this product. Um, give me 10 ideas, 10 topics if you want, or 10 titles or whatever. If you already have the product, then you can back up and come up with the webinar idea as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So you might
Okay.
do that. Well, let's go through this and then we can see what we want to, what you might go in and how to move forward in the next work session.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, right. We are going to talk about content creation and irresistible titles. And in order to do that, we need to make sure we have clarity. Clarity creates confidence both for you and for your audience. So, because think about this, and now obviously we're in the preparation stage, but if you were to actually go on to a webinar and not be prepared or not be clear, that's just a waste of your time and their time. It's like going into a play without a script. You'd be nervous, you'd be stumbling, you'd be second guessing what you're going to do. And yet, many business owners, that's how they go to webinars. They just think they're going to get on and talk about, the topic, and then they don't really have a plan for their whole webinar. And then they specifically don't have a plan to sell because that's what the whole point is, to be able to sell. And what happens? Well, the audience is confused, so there's no sales. You've got to be as clear as possible. Like sometimes when I'm telling people what to do, I'm like, I may make a banner, a little thing that goes above my blog post, and I put the words click here so that they will actually click on it. Because sometimes they look at it and they go, that's really nice. You have got to be really clear with your presentation and with your sales presentation as well. And when your content has structure and an irresistible title, you remove the uncertainty and it invites people to lean in to what you are selling them. So just think about this. You're not just making slides. You're not just teaching. you're creating a clear guided path to transformation because you are the guide. I don't, if you've read Story Brand, is one of my favorite books to help you set up a product or a webinar or business. But Story Brand talks about you are not the hero. Your audience is the hero, and you are the guide taking them down the journey for transformation. So if you can sort of think of it that way, and you're not the hero and they're going whatever, but you are just the guy. So we want to talk about our content. We want to get that down so you can deliver it with value and smoothly sail into your offer as well. So we've talked about your problem, the topic of your problem. And we need that connection statement between the free and the paid. And now we're going to talk about a content plan. How do we really structure this? How do we get it down? Now, generally now I teach hour-long webinars, although the one in October, I'm really hoping to shorten a little bit because I just think people are busy. But if you have enough good value, people will stay. I have people that do stay on a class that for the entire hour, even through the sales presentation. So I'm going to go through some of this quickly. It is in the workbook, and then I'm going to go back and sort of give some ideas. So let's just talk about it big picture. The first thing is we want to, well, first of all, you need to get on before it actually starts. And I usually chit chat with people or ask them a question to get them putting something in the chat, give them the link to the workbook, or if you have a handout, that type of thing. So intro, start with an intro of some sort. It could just be the title. But one of the first things I do is I tell them my promise, basically what I'm going to show them over the next 30 minutes or an hour. Then I'm going to tell them what to expect in more detail. So by the end of our time together, you will blah, 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 4 or 5 bullet points. So we've got intro, promise, what to expect, and then a quick win. And I'll explain what that is. Then credibility. This is basically your story. Maybe a testimony in there, but it's your story. And it could be how you went through this horrible problem yourself, and now you fell upon this great process or method or formula, and you want to share that with everyone else and help them avoid having the same problems. Then we're going to do the teaching, and you're going to build that around whatever the structure is that you chose in our first lesson. And then we will transition to our offer. And I wrote this down. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. It looks like I sort of doubled up. Anyway, so then we'll transition to our offer. And in the offer, the first thing I do is tell my promise for my product. So here's what this webinar or class is going to do. Now, when I give them the offer, and I'll talk about transition in a second, then I'm going to tell them this is what it will do for you. And I'm going to talk about benefits after that. I'm going to talk about any bonuses that I might offer and maybe include some testimonials as well. So let's back up and talk about, I'm using my Raising Leaders, Not Followers as an example. My promise, I'm going to read this whole thing to you, is, and you could use this, and I will put this in as a prompt so that you could take this and just rework it for yours. It's not like the best thing ever, but anyway, I'm going to show you exactly how you can go from feeling scattered, overwhelmed, and worried about doing enough in your homeschool to feeling focused and intentional with your kids' education. Then you will experience peace and confidence by giving your kids the best education possible as you raise them to be Christian leaders who impact and influence those around them. And as I read it now, I'm like, yes, some of those words are very intentional. So I'm going to show you how you can go from this scattered, overwhelmed, and worried about what do I do to being focused and intentional with your education. So that's the problem and the solution part. Then I share the benefit, and then you will experience peace and confidence by giving them the best education possible. Then I throw in the part they may not really be into all the leadership stuff, so that you can raise them to be Christian leaders who impact and influence those around them. Now, the reason I use the word impact and influence is some people are like, my kid's not going to be president. And throughout this class, I'm going to say leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I probably say that 3 or 4 times through the class. So that's the reason I use some of the words that I did. So problem to solution, and then the benefit of how it's going to help them. That's sort of what your promise is all about. And you should have this really for anything that you're going to sell. I would say big time, I would say anything, 25 or $30, but especially 100 and up, you need to have a promise for that product of what they're going to get, and you're going to use it on your sales pages, and then a promise for your like here for the webinar itself. Then I say what to expect. And these are just 4 or 5 bullet points. Basically, I come up with some benefit-driven bullet points. I use them on my sales page. I use them on my email. I repeat them here so that they're probably like, oh, yeah, that's why I'm here. So it's okay to use similar verbiage in different places. So I come up with my 4 or 5 bullet points that are benefit-driven. And then I have a quick win. Now, this is something I did learn from Amy Porterfield. I don't know if she pushes this as much now, but I personally do it. And a quick win is like a 5-minute win. What is something they can do right then that they can get a win? And this is one of the places, or let's back up. I'll ask them a question when I say promise. I'm like, how does that make you feel? Put something in the chat. They start to interact with me. What to expect? Will this help your homeschool? And they can put something in the chat. Quick win. We give them the quick win, and I'll give you an example in a minute. And then I'll say, who's willing for me? Who's going to take the Post-it challenge this week? Put yes in the thing. Or if you already know your answers to the Post-it challenge, put them in the chat. So here's my quick win. One of the things that character is foundational for leaders. And I have a quote that says from this guy, not necessarily a believer, but he basically says, first and foremost is character. That's what you need. And he's a leadership expert. And so I give them a quick little synopsis. I say, I want you to write the name of each child on a Post-it. And then I want you to say what character quality is it that you want to work with them. And then I want you to come up with a verse that will help them develop that character quality. I want all of that on a Post-it, and then you put them on the refrigerator. That way, every time they're struggling with it, you can take that one and you sit down and talk to them about it. You can sit down, you can say, hey, we're really working on this. Let's go through that. And then, or if they're being successful, you take them and you praise them. And I encourage them to have the kid write the verse down and say it out loud every single morning for a whole month at least, or pray it, whatever. And then I'm like, can you see how this might take the burden off your shoulders to God's shoulders? And then you can say, who's willing to take the Post-it challenge, basically. Well, that's something they can all think. Even if they leave in 30 minutes, they've walked away and you're serving them. You've walked away with one thing. Now, obviously, that's just for one webinar. I don't use that for all of them. Didn't really remember all the rest. That's one that's in my head. Credibility. I do tell my story. I tell it quickly because really this first introduction part up until the teaching, you really want to get through in an hour, you probably have about 15 minutes. In half an hour, you really have about 8 or 10 minutes to get through that. So then you want your teaching. And if it's 3 points, 3 things, 3 ways, 3 problems, 3 mistakes, whatever, or you can still use like the feel felt formula. I think that's something that you would talk about and you can introduce it, but you're still going to give some solutions in that formula section. So whatever structure you choose, you can still come up with your teaching. I would, at the beginning, no more than 3 main points, just so they're not overwhelmed. Then we want to transition and preview the offer. So one thing I do is when I finish, my 3 points or whatever, I will have a slide that says, I will review whatever it is. And I'll say, which one of these would help you the most right now in your homeschool? or in your planning or in your nutrition or whatever it is you're talking about. And then they put something in the chat. Every time they put something in the chat agreeing with you, that is one more step to saying, yes, I need this. Then we're going to transition. So here is something I do, and I'm just going back to my leadership. We'll just stick with it. I'll say something like, after they do that, I'm going, that is great. You know, right now I see two options for you. Number one option, and I actually have these on a slide. You can try to create a Christian leadership education plan, but you'll run the risk of being in the same place this time next year with a big open loop and no plan to give your children that better education that you want for them. Or option two, you could 100% commit to focusing on Christian leadership education with a proven plan. If you're ready to build confidence and freedom in your homeschool efforts and follow a proven plan, then I invite you to join me inside our Raising Leaders, Not Followers course. So that's my transition. And then the very next slide is my promise. Raising Leaders, Not Followers is the only leadership education course of its kind from a Christian perspective that will show you exactly how to build godly character, lifetime learners who can think critically and biblically, as well as make wise decisions as they glorify and honor Jesus Christ. So it's a mouthful, but that is sort of my transition. And then I go into my promise, and then I go into what they're going to get. I go through my 6 modules, and I go quickly through that. And then, like I said, you're going to go, if you have any bonuses you want to share, what else did I put on here? And then I will say, I will scatter in some testimonies. So when I read that little promise, before I even go to the next slide, I said, well, you know, I need to tell you about my student, Angie. Angie was never going to homeschool again. She only did COVID and then blah, blah, blah. I tell them what her testimony is. I just tell it like, here's what she and I were talking about. So it's not even on a slide. If I had pictures, I might put them on a slide. But and then a few ways through, like there's one I can't even remember, but some of the the modules, some of the benefits, I have specific testimonials that people gave me, so I'll just read those as well along the way. If you don't have testimonials, then I would, specifically for that, then I would use some general testimonials of people that have worked with you and the benefit they've gotten just with working for you, because you may not have any. Or if you've ever helped anyone individually without that course, doing whatever it is, you can ask them if you can get a testimonial from them. I wouldn't just say that. I would say, could you answer 2 quick questions? Like, what was it like? What was it like before we worked together, and what was it like after we worked together? And then ask them, could I create a little testimonial? I'll show it to you, and you can let me know if that's okay to share with my group. So the other thing is, if you don't have anyone, then you could always talk about your method and maybe even some sort of scientific evidence or some sort of research that supports your method as well as you go along. Okay, so that is sort of the framework. I took out there's slide numbers in the workbook, but that doesn't mean you're going to actually have just one slide for each one of them, but some of them you may have actually more. Let's see what else. Okay, yeah, I do have slide numbers, but some of it you may need to expand. What I would do today is just get the main points right there. The one thing I don't know if I put in the slide, yeah, I did. Oh, this is the old workbook. Okay, there's no slide numbers in y'all's. It should just have a list of slides and what the order of things that you want to share. So tips. So let's talk about content that is more than just tips, because sometimes tips sound like, oh, it's a blog post or something. You want to frame whatever you're talking about as you are the guide. So let me give you some examples of how to do this. Instead of 3 Instagram tips, say, this is the Instagram visibility formula. So it's more of a formula. Now, I use tips sometimes, but if you can reframe it, Then they're thinking a formula. Oh, I got to get this formula because it's going to solve my problem. The other things that I would do throughout in your presentation is, like I said, inside Raising Leaders, Not Followers, I'm going to go deeper into critical thinking. You know, I can only talk about the read, write, discuss method, but we go all into how do you lead a discussion when you don't feel qualified, you know, and we give you tips and tricks on how to do that. But that's all in the course because I only have so much time here. I do even intersperse, not a lot, throughout the teaching. Maybe if I had a testimonial for each tip or each section, if I have three, maybe just tell their story in the middle of whatever it is you're teaching. Say, oh, you know, I remember when I was working with Mary, this happened, and and just share what happened so that they can see that you've worked with people and it just adds more credibility. Another thing you can say to just say is what I'm sharing today is just one piece of a bigger system. So I'm trying to give you some different ideas of things you can say in your presentation. All right, so that's sort of the overall presentation. I'm going to talk about titles. So in the workbook, so I'm not just going to read all of these. I have 10 or 11. Yeah, I have 11 formulas. One of these that was in my notes, I don't even think I put in there. But here, the without formula, how to, whatever they want to happen, how to lose weight without counting calories. That would be the pain point or the obstacle. Here's one, how to fill your webinars without spending money on ads. So there's a bunch of formulas in there. You will need to know your pain points, your results, and things like that to fill it in. But during the work time, I would go through and try to come up with some titles that you could see. What we want to do, another one is how to lose weight. I do have that one in there without. I just put that in there. I didn't see that. How to grow your email list without posting on social every day. So what I would do is maybe come through some of these. They may help you come up with your structure. Then I would take it to Chat GPT and say, here's what I'm thinking about for my webinar. Give me 10 more examples that are similar to this and just see what they come up with. And then you might have to say, oh, I like this one, but I don't like this part of it. And let ChatGPT come up with some more ideas for that. Now, in doing this, to help you get started and in the workbook, you want to go through and come up with some ideas. This is our keyword brainstorming. You want to pull phrases, one that you've seen your audience actually use. Maybe they write it in an email to you. Maybe they write it on social. But as much as possible, use their language. So I've got a place that you can put about 10 to 15 keywords that are related to your topic. It could be maybe from FAQs that they keep asking you. What are the benefits? What are the buzzwords in your niche? You know, I already mentioned stop overwhelm and stop stressing out are buzzwords that I hear all the time in homeschooling. Simplify. I want to simplify. So you want to put those there. And then you want to think about what are specific outcomes with any of these keywords that your audience would want. You don't want things vague. You want to be as specific as possible. So you want to come up with this title, and there's a place for you eventually to put some variations of it. And then if you have some peers or a group of people in your niche, say, hey, I'm thinking about teaching a class, and I was wondering which one of these would be most helpful to you. Don't say I'm trying to test out and get your results, but just say, which one of these would be most helpful? Because I'd really like to create a class that would help y'all the most. So and once you do that, then you could take that and even tweak it some more. So one of these, turn your blog into sales with webinars, or from blog to bank, the webinar strategy for consistent sales. And even with this VIP day, I put it out in my mastermind group in our Homeschool Blogger University and had about 5 titles and let people vote on them. And between that and then the group that I'm in, my own mastermind coaching group, I put it out there and then it eventually came up with the webinar sales system. just as how we decided it. Now, if possible, if it's a way you can correlate your product name with your webinar, that would be great. For example, your product is the email list accelerator. Your webinar title could be 3 steps to accelerate your email growth without burnout. It may be only like one little part of your course, hopefully, but you see how and like for me, 4 steps to raising Christian leaders. Raising leaders, not followers, is my course. So it has some of the same verbiage in it. That would be a way. This creates continuity and it builds a desire for the next step in your people that are coming. Okay, the last thing I had on here was trial closes, which I've already said, but I'm going to repeat it again. Sprinkle in small yes moments. Does this make sense? And they can write in the chat. Can you see how that would work for you? This builds momentum before you ever get to the offer. These are little mini closes that keeps engagement high and primed for your attendees to buy. Now I'm going to give you a little trick of how I encourage people writing things in the chat. I have several digital giveaways that I have, and so I will say at the beginning, I'm going to be giving away, well, for one of them, I'm going to be giving away verses and prayers to pray for your kids, or I don't remember the exact title, but something like that. And I'll be giving it away to just a few people in the chat. Every time you put something in the chat, then you will be entered. And basically, if you have someone help you that's running it with you, that's great. Otherwise, I just take the little mouse and I'm like, oh gosh, we need to give one of these away. And I just scroll up and down, and wherever the mouse lands, that's the person. That's my random choice. And not random.org or anything like that. It's very random. Sometimes if someone everyone's not giving the right answer and all of a sudden someone does, oh, you win, blah, 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 whatever it is. For instance, one of my things in my thing is what's a liberal education? And I get all sorts of answers. But when someone talks about liberal and freedom, I'm like, oh, but sometimes some classes everyone gets it, some classes no one gets it. So you can sort of just choose how you do that. I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing it, but I would, if you're going to do it, I would give something away like right after that quick win, something quick. And that way the late people find out and hey, we're giving that away and we're giving it to so-and-so. And then maybe, and I actually have little notes, hey, time to give something away. So I know and in my notes, but if not, whatever you want. That way it's sort of spaced out as well. That's just one of my little tricks that I use. So mini closes, engagement. So now it's going to be time to finalize your webinar title. And then you're not writing all your slides, you're just coming up with an outline of what you want, a general outline. Then you can go and add details to it. Tomorrow we'll cover mechanics and some of the ways I know I've been saying it a lot. You do sell, through the thing. And I'll keep saying that because I just think people think you just get on and do a little presentation. How many times do you do a giveaway? In an hour-long webinar, I may give away, it depends, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Sometimes I get going and I forget after the second one. And then I do not give anything away after you've hit the last point. You don't want them doing that. By then, they're sort of in the habit of putting things in the chat. You don't want to interrupt your sales presentation, your transition to the offer. I was trying to think. Anyway, so any questions on coming up with the title? I think there's several little things that can help you. But hopefully you will come up with a webinar title, complete content outline. That's just the content. It's not, all the details. It'd be like point 1, point 2, point 3. And then when you get ready to, you can go and flesh out all your ideas and stories and stuff. Any questions? Okay. All right, then around 3 o'clock my time, we will come back together. I'm gonna turn this off. I already have video one in the members area, so I'm gonna go get this one on as well.